We have some trade updates around Vooch and the Chicago Bulls. We're going to be talking about the likelihood of the Chicago Bulls making a move at this upcoming trade deadline. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you have found yourself on another episode of Bulls Digest. And so, look, today we are diving into the most recent rumors around Vooch. This is something that is going to continue, obviously, as we move closer to that February 6th trade deadline. You're going to hear lots of trade rumors and things like that. And so this most recent rumor comes from ESPN.com. It is actually a staff writer, and I believe he also is a beat writer for the Los Angeles Clippers, and he's also been on their show, The Jump. And so if you want to check this out, you can first go over to Bleacher Nation, and you can see just the small little piece or snippet out of that article. However, I am getting ready to go into the actual ESPN article here, and this is under why the Warriors still believe they can get back to their championship ways. And this is what was said here. So I'm just going to go ahead and paraphrase this, And so let's just start with the fact that they take it back to a game in which they take on the Miami Heat. At the time, the Miami Heat had suspended Jimmy Butler, and they lose in this game. And they talk about Mike Dunleavy, I believe the GM, meeting with the CEO of the Golden State Warriors and just talking about the frustration that really came out of that. And so I think that that is something that you can really sense it with the Golden State Warriors, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But it also goes on to outline maybe some of the players that maybe are moved, talking about Andrew Wiggins and his contract at $26 million, talking about the expiring contracts with Kevon Looney, then also to Gary Payton II, and then talking about some of the younger pieces like Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Brandon Brzezinski. Like, those are some of the younger pieces that maybe the Golden State Warriors might want to trade. But then talking about the recent update here is that the Golden State Warriors more than likely are going to wait closer to the trade deadline to see on a player like Vooch. And so that right there really is an update in the sense that if the Golden State Warriors are thinking that they want to wait a little bit closer to the deadline, initially my thoughts are they're probably wanting to see if the asking price is going to change, because one of the things that it does talk about under the players listed is that the Golden State Warriors do have 3 first-round picks that are tradable, and they also have 2 second-round picks that are tradable. And so when we are looking at a Vooch deal, some of the things that we've been hearing around this, and again, this is all rumors and speculation via these insiders and things like that, but we're hearing that maybe the Chicago Bulls would want a first-round pick. And I think that based off the way that he's played at the all-star level and just a walking double-double, I absolutely think that the Chicago Bulls are right in wanting a first-round pick. We had heard initially that it was going to be 2 second-round picks to move him, but it looks like maybe now, if it is true, the Chicago Bulls have maybe upped the asking price. And so here we go with, does this make sense for the Golden State Warriors and the Chicago Bulls to do this deal? And so starting with why it makes sense for the Golden State Warriors, it absolutely does, because they need some size and they need a player that can stretch the floor. And oh, by the way, they just lost Draymond Green for a couple weeks with a mild calf strain. And so even with Vooch there and no Draymond Green, I think defensively, the way that Golden State is built, they still have enough to really, I think, help Vooch defensively until they get Draymond Green back. And I think that naturally, if he can really get into, playing with Steph and these guys like that until Draymond gets back, I think that that would be huge. Now, that is if they do the deal. And so next up, from the Golden State standpoint, I think that, one of the things that they're looking for is an expiring contract. And I know that Vooch, has some time left on this contract, and it does go up a little bit the next season. I think a little bit more on his contract, just barely, but still, you're getting basically a contract that is expiring. And I think that it works out best for the Golden State Warriors because, look, if they get all their pieces back, you get a healthy Draymond Green, you get Vooch, and you get him at the trade deadline, okay, so you get a chance to make a push with them. And, depending on how this run goes, then it's like, okay, You got a chance to see how it worked out. You got a chance to see what works, what doesn't work. Now you can go into this next offseason, and if you feel like, the window is closing, in this next season, then you can kind of maybe go a little bit more all in, and you already know what the fit is going to look like. So I think that by doing this, it actually buys Golden State a little bit more time to see exactly what they want to do to maximize their championship window. So I think that that could be a win-win for Golden State. And next up for them, I think that it doesn't necessarily burn through too much trade assets for you because, if the Bulls want to get a first-round pick, you can do that. You also have some young pieces that I think the Chicago Bulls would absolutely want. I do think the Bulls would like to have Kuminga, even though he is going into a contract year. Yes, I know he is hurt, but man, there is some upside there. You have to think that if the Bulls were going to go to the younger movement, I think certainly he could fit in with what you're wanting to do with getting up and down the floor. And I think that there is definitely some improvement, especially if he works, maybe with our assistant coach, with Patton out there and the way that he's helped shooters, So I think that that is something that could be a real added bonus for the Chicago Bulls. And so for the Bulls standpoint, look, it works because you get the draft capital you want. You get a younger player. You obviously get off of Vooch, and this would maybe give you a little bit more of a direction with an actual teardown or a rebuild at this point, because we know that this team is seriously just into just this over and over cycle of being in the middle. And so I think that that is where, the Bulls really get a real win out of this. And also, too, you get some expiring contracts back, right? So these are players that you can get over, and then you can just go ahead and you simply can move on if you feel like it is not going to be a part of your future, whether it is Gary Payton II, whether it's Kuminga, even if they float Dennis Schroeder in the deal, which I'm not sure if they are going to. This kind of goes back to what Mark Spears was saying on ESPN, that maybe they might float him in a deal. I don't know, but it's an expiring contract at that point, and that is something that I think the Bulls want, is expiring contracts, and then also, too, you could get some draft capital. So I think that this works for both teams. But I think the bottom line here, and really the issue about this, is what are the Chicago Bulls going to do to really leverage this situation? Because as you read this article a little bit more, I think you understand just maybe as to why there's like some emphasis on the Golden State Warriors really making a deal, because it does talk about the fact that Steph Curry is dealing with a hand injury. He's also dealing with a knee injury, and they have talked about wanting to maximize this window. And so if you're going to maximize this window, you have a very affordable player. This is something that I think was even mentioned by Sam Amick when he was on the FanDuel TV show Run It Back, where he was talking about this very meeting, and also too that Steph Curry was dealing with some injuries. And so look, there is the concern around the Golden State Warriors to probably, I'd say, kind of shake things up. One of the things that I think is mentioned in here is that Steph Curry is like, look, if Dunleavy tells me something, then, I just give him my opinion. But for the most part, we're taking care of our business here on the court. Just paraphrasing that. So make sure you go out there and give it a read. But I think the sense of urgency is there for the Golden State. But what will the Chicago Bulls do? Because this is a deal where hopefully AK doesn't mess this up, because our front office, in my opinion, it's one of the hardest front offices to read. I mean, we don't know, do you want a first round pick? Do you want second round picks? Do you want young players? What type of contracts do you want? Like, we don't necessarily know what it is that AK is looking for when it comes down to getting to the negotiation table. But it looks like they have a trade partner, which I think this is something as Chicago Bulls fans, we know we need, is a trade partner. So you have this. And so I hope that the front office plays their cards right. They don't hold on to an asset too long like they generally have. Let it walk when you could be seriously maximizing an opportunity for this team as far as getting them a direction. So make sure that you go ahead and just keep paying attention to this stuff. This is something that we're probably going to get hit with. And so next up, another thing I wanted to talk about is Casey Johnson really affirming on his show today. It was a Fast Break episode 2, and it's on the Chicago Bulls Sports Network on YouTube. So check that out. It's under the same article that I mentioned with Bleacher Nation. And so with this, he is just simply, kind of affirming that, yes, the Chicago Bulls have been in talks with at least 2 teams around Vooch. He does really say that he thinks that Vooch would more than likely be the player to be moved. So, but again, make sure that you go check that out. It's about an 8-minute clip. And he does talk about Zach Lavine and his situation, and that, just really probably the contract and the CBA is going to be an issue. And with Lonzo Ball, probably the thing that could maybe really hold a deal up there is probably going to be the injuries, right, that he's had. So that might be something that another team might be concerned about. And so anyway, make sure that you go ahead and check this out on Bleacher Nation or ESPN.com. But before we jump out of here, let me know in the comments what you think about this most recent trade information. Do you think that, yes, the Golden State Warriors, even though they are probably waiting, will more than likely strike a deal with the Chicago Bulls? Or do you feel like, no, the Chicago Bulls, this front office, is going to probably have too high of an asking price, or somehow maybe mess up a possible deal with the Golden State Warriors or another team? So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Just want to thank everybody out there for liking, sharing, and subscribing to the content. It means a lot to us here at Bulls Digest as we try to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of the NBA season out there. Wanted to go ahead and let you know that about 66.8% of you that watch are not subscribed to the channel, so make sure you go ahead and slam dunk on that subscribe button, as it means a lot to us here. And so as we jump out, just want to let you guys know that, again, these are all speculations, rumors, and things like that. And so this is not, oh, hey, they're doing this and stuff like that. So make sure just that you just check that out, and just really come up with your own thoughts and opinions on it, because again, we're going to hear a lot of trade rumors around this team as the February 6th deadline comes. And I think that it's something that is probably really starting to, I think, affect this team in a way, because I think you could tell with the energy out there in that game against the Portland Trailblazers. I think you saw that, and I think it's going to be an uphill battle for this team, quite honestly, as they take on the Clippers, who I believe are one of the top teams as far as turning you over and scoring points off of turnovers. And even without Kawhi Leonard, that's going to be tough. Then you look at the fact that we do have the Sixers in this on the next 3 games, and I think the Sixers, even without Embiid, are going to be a tough team to beat for us. And then the Warriors. How convenient that the Warriors would be a team that the Chicago Bulls would be playing amongst all these rumors and things like that. But still, I think the Golden State Warriors would present some problems for the Chicago Bulls, even without Draymond Green. So anyway, even though it looks tough for the Chicago Bulls, and I say it all the time, they need to get a plan regardless what happens to this team. I'm still saying go Bulls, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.